A woman sits alone outside a royal court. She must tell every passerby that she had done the unthinkable to her child, a crime she never committed. As punishment, she must offer to carry strangers on her back like a horse. This is the story of Rhiannon, one of the most tragic figures in Welsh mythology. In this video, we'll explore the complete story of Rhiannon, from her mysterious arrival on a magical horse to the cruel punishment that nearly destroyed her life, and the truth that finally emerged years later. The story begins in Dyfed, where the ruler Pwyll sat with his companions upon a great mound known as Gwawl Arbyrth. The mound carried an unusual reputation. It was said that whoever sat there would witness either a wonder or a disaster. As the men talked among themselves, something appeared in the distance, a woman riding across the landscape. At first there seemed nothing remarkable about her, yet as she drew closer, it became clear that something was wrong. Her horse moved at a calm, steady pace. It did not gallop, it did not race, and yet, no matter how closely they watched, she never seemed to come any nearer. Curious, Pwyll sent one of his riders after her. The man spurred his horse forward, but the woman remained beyond his reach. Another rider was sent, then another. Each urged their horses to greater speed. Each failed. The woman continued ahead of them at the same effortless pace, as though distance itself obeyed her will. Finally, Pwyll decided to pursue her himself. He mounted his horse and rode after the mysterious rider. Faster and faster, he pressed his horse forward, yet still he could not catch her. At last, frustrated and astonished, he called out, "Lady, for the sake of the one you love most, stop and wait for me." Only then did she slow her horse. Only then did she stop. When Pwyll finally reached her, he found himself face to face with a woman of extraordinary beauty. She introduced herself as Rhiannon, and she had come seeking him. Rhiannon had not come to Dyfed by chance. She had come for Pwyll. The reason was simple. She wished to marry him. But there was a problem. Her hand had already been promised to another man, a powerful noble named Gwawl. The arrangement had been made without her consent, and Rhiannon wanted no part of it. Instead, she had chosen Pwyll, not because of an alliance, not because of politics, because he was the man she wanted. She had seen the future laid out before her, and she refused it. The two agreed that Rhiannon would return in a year's time, bringing a great company with her for the wedding. But Welsh mythology rarely allows happiness to arrive so easily, because while Rhiannon had rejected Gwawl, Gwawl himself knew nothing of it, and before the wedding could take place, Pwyll would make a mistake that nearly cost him everything. A year passed. Just as she had promised, Rhiannon returned to Dyfed with a magnificent company to celebrate the wedding. The feast was prepared, guests gathered, everything seemed to be unfolding exactly as planned. Then Gwawl arrived. He approached Pwyll with a simple request. As a noble guest, he asked for a favour. Bound by honour and hospitality, Pwyll agreed before hearing what the request was. It was a costly mistake. Gwawl immediately demanded Rhiannon as his bride. Pwyll had trapped himself. He had given his word in front of witnesses, and in the world of Welsh mythology, a ruler's word carried enormous weight. Unable to break his promise, Pwyll was forced to surrender Rhiannon. The wedding was cancelled. Gwawl left victorious, and Rhiannon's future seemed decided. But unlike many figures in medieval stories, Rhiannon refused to accept her fate. Instead, she devised a plan. A year later, Pwyll returned disguised as a beggar carrying a magical bag. He entered Gawl's wedding feast and asked only for enough food to fill it. The request seemed harmless. Gwawl agreed. Food was piled into the bag, then more food, then more. But no matter how much they added, the bag remained empty. At last, the bewildered Gwawl demanded to know how it could be filled. Pwyll gave him an answer. A wealthy man, he said, must climb into the bag and press the food down with his feet. Eager to solve the mystery, Gwawl stepped inside. The moment he did, Pwyll's men rushed forward. The bag was tied shut. The trapped nobleman could do nothing, as he was captured and humiliated before the assembled guests. Defeated at last, Gwawl agreed to abandon his claim to Rhiannon. The wedding could finally go ahead. Pwyll and Rhiannon were married. For the first time in the story, it seemed as though they had won, but their greatest trial was still to come. For a time, life was good. Pwyll and Rhiannon ruled together, and before long they welcomed a son. The kingdom celebrated. After years of uncertainty and struggle, the future seemed secure. But the happiness did not last. One night, a group of women were given the responsibility of watching over the newborn child. As the hours passed, they grew tired. One by one, they fell asleep. When they finally awoke, The child was gone. The cradle stood empty. Panic spread through the room. They searched desperately. The child had simply vanished. The women knew they would be blamed, and in their fear, they made a terrible decision. Desperate to hide what had happened, they staged a deception. Using the blood of a nearby puppy, they arranged a dreadful scene around the sleeping Rhiannon. By morning, the story had already been prepared. The women claimed that Rhiannon had done the unthinkable to her child. The accusation spread quickly, and despite her protests, despite her innocence, many believed it. Rhiannon denied everything. Again and again she told the truth, but the child was gone. There was no witness, no explanation, only an empty cradle, and so the blame fell upon Rhiannon. Many expected her to be cast out, others demanded a harsher fate. Some even argued that she deserved the most severe punishment possible, believing nothing less would fit such an accusation, but Rhiannon was given a choice. Rather than face a more severe punishment, she agreed to a different sentence. For years, she was required to sit outside the gates of the royal court. There, she had to stop every traveller who passed by. To each one, she was expected to tell the story of the accusation against her, that she was said to have done the unthinkable to her child, a crime she had never committed, and if they wished, she was to carry them upon her back like a horse to the court above. Day after day, year after year, travellers arriving at the court would see the same figure, waiting outside the gates. Many knew only the accusation. Some may have believed it, but each encounter forced Rhiannon to relive the same humiliation once more. The punishment became part of her life. Travellers came and went. Seasons changed, yet Rhiannon remained, publicly shamed for a crime she did not commit. But through it all, she never abandoned her dignity. She never confessed to something she had not done. She could have allowed the story told about her to become her identity. Instead, she continued to insist upon her innocence, even when doing so appeared to change nothing at all. And perhaps that is what makes this part of the story so powerful. Not that Rhiannon suffered, but that she endured. For years, she carried a burden that should never have been hers, all while the truth remained hidden and far from the royal court. That truth was growing up under another name. While Rhiannon endured her punishment, events elsewhere were unfolding that nobody could have imagined. One night, a nobleman named Teyrnon was guarding a mare that had repeatedly lost her foals shortly after birth. Determined to discover what was happening, he kept watch through the night. As midnight approached, a monstrous claw reached through the window of the stable. It belonged to a mysterious creature that had been stealing the newborn foals, but after Teyrnon wounded it, it fled into the darkness. A terrible cry echoed into the night. Then, from outside, he heard something else, the sound of a crying child. Rushing from the stable, he found an infant lying nearby, alone, abandoned, and unharmed. The child seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Teyrnon and his wife took him into their home. The couple had no way of knowing where the infant had come from. They knew only that he had appeared on the same night as the attack upon the stable, and so they raised him with kindness and care. As the years passed, the boy grew strong, intelligent, and well-loved. Teyrnon grew deeply fond of him. Yet with that affection came a growing question. Who was the child's true family? The answer became harder to ignore with every passing year. The boy's appearance began to resemble Pwyll so closely that those who knew the ruler could scarcely fail to notice it. What had once seemed coincidence slowly became conviction. Teyrnon realized that the child entrusted to his household all those years ago almost certainly belonged elsewhere, and however painful it might be to part with him, the truth deserved to be known. So he travelled to the court of Dyfed and brought the boy with him. There, the truth finally began to emerge. The missing child had been found. Years after his disappearance, Rhiannon's son had returned. The accusation that had destroyed her life had been false from the very beginning. At last, Rhiannon was proven innocent. Her son was restored to her, and the family that had been torn apart was finally reunited. The years that had been lost could never be returned, but the truth, at long last, had come into the light. By the end of the story, the mystery of Rhiannon had been resolved. The missing child had returned. The false accusation had been exposed, and the woman who had endured years of humiliation had finally been vindicated. Yet Rhiannon's story survived for far longer than many other medieval tales. Part of that may be because of the extraordinary journey she undergoes. When we first meet her, she appears almost untouchable, a mysterious rider upon a white horse, a woman no one can catch, a figure of wonder moving through the landscape as though she belongs to another world entirely. Then everything changes. The woman who seemed beyond the reach of ordinary life loses almost everything. Her reputation, her child, years of her life. She falls from mystery and admiration into suspicion and humiliation. And yet, she never allows that suffering to define who she is. What makes Rhiannon remarkable is not that she avoids hardship. It is the dignity with which she endures it. And perhaps that is the deepest idea within the story. For years, everyone around Rhiannon believes a lie. The truth changes nothing about what she must endure. It does not spare her suffering. It does not immediately restore her reputation. Yet the truth remains true, whether people recognize it or not, whether years pass or not. And in the end, the lie collapses beneath its own weight, not because of revenge, power, or force, but because the truth finally emerges. People still remember and love Rhiannon today because she faced injustice without allowing it to corrupt her. She endured long enough for the truth to come into the light. More than 1,000 years after these stories were first told, that remains a powerful idea, and it is one that continues to resonate today. Rhiannon's story is only one of many remarkable tales preserved within Welsh mythology. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. And if there's a Welsh myth, legend, figure, or place you'd like to see explored in a future video, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.